What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the channel. It's Matty, and I know I haven't seen y'all in a while. I've video number 2 today, but it's been pretty crazy busy working at the ED and the theme parks. It's been nuts. We'll talk about it in another podcast, if you will. But this flu virus going around is something wicked, and I've got my ideas about what it is and where it's coming from. Not everybody agrees with me, which is fine, but you know, when you start doing some research on it, it kind of starts to make sense as to why it's happening. And I think it's from all the Capri Sun people are taking. I've mentioned that in my first video. If you want to know what Capri Sun means, just do the math. Put 2 and 2 together. One of these days we'll explain it, but I can't say the real words because it'll get this video probably either taken down or it'll get shadow banned, blocked, whatever. So I got to kind of use creative wording. But, you know, like that. But anyway, I came to talk to you about an issue that is really glaring right now, and it's getting worse by the day. And I'm going to try to stay focused on just this one topic because it's easy for me to start rambling because I'm very passionate about this. But the topic today is we're facing a very dangerous situation in this country, and that is the shortage of paramedics. And then you want to go a step further, the shortage of really good paramedics. Paramedics are pretty much the lifeblood of EMS and the emergency services. They do it all. And I really think, you know, if I get anything across while I'm doing this is to anybody that sees this that may not be a medic or understand what medics do, that you do have a better understanding of what we do and why I make the plea that paramedics need better pay. You know, that we are wrapped up there with the EMT level pay a lot of times, and that is crushing the profession, you know, especially with the amount of schooling you got to go through, you know, all of this stuff. You know, paramedics for years, decades were very underpaid. And the reason and the excuse given every time was, well, you don't hold a license. RNs hold a license. Well, the National Registry of Paramedics got together with the states and all the authorities and all that. And they said, fine, we'll make it a license. You go to school for 2 years, get your associate, or you go to 4 years, get a bachelor's, and you get your license from the National Registry of Paramedics and EMTs. So they created it to be a license. Nothing changed. Not a damn thing changed. Everybody still has their head up their ass that's setting these salaries and that, or the hourly rates that, well, they just don't do as much as nurses. And please, anybody's watching that's an RN, much respect for you all. I work with a bunch of RNs. They are really good at what they do. I'm not here to bash nurses. In fact, I've considered going to nursing school because of the pay difference. But that's why I'm making this as well, is one, to bring about the issue of the shortage of paramedics, but two, is why there's a shortage, because the pay has sucked forever. And it shouldn't suck. That's the whole thing. That paramedics should not be underpaid. And I think the reason they are underpaid is because people that set these pay rates don't really understand what it is medics do. I think they tangle them up with the EMTs. And again, nothing against EMTs either. A great EMT makes a great medic. I will stand by that line for here to the day I die, and even in the afterlife. You cannot have a successful medic without a successful EMT. Both go hand in hand. Paramedic cannot do it all. You need a good EMT as your partner. Or if you're running dual medics, you need a good second paramedic. Because a shitty partner will absolutely sink you no matter how good you are. But what I think to start with is to why the pay is so low and has been for so long is we are, one, the victims of our own circumstance. You know, we caused this. And you say, Matt, what do you mean that we caused this? How did we cause our pay to be low? And well, my reasoning behind that is I remember when I first got, licensed and I got my first fire job, most fire departments now hire paramedics because you run firefighter medics. One, it's a benefit for the city. It's a benefit for the citizens because you don't have to split services. You have everything running out of one location. Everybody's dual certified and duly licensed. And hey, everybody's happy, right? Well, not really, because when I first got hired in the fire service, I'll never forget, the chief sat me down and everybody else, well, you don't do this job to get rich. And I said, fine. I'm just happy to be here. I wanted this job so bad. I wanted to be a paid fireman so bad. I really didn't care what I got paid. I was just happy to be there and happy to be doing that kind of work for a living. That's all I wanted my whole life. And so I settled for something way less, because we were happy. And it was just a given. We were all sleepwalking through the ether. Firemen always have second jobs. It's just what we do. Firefighting doesn't make enough to make a living, especially if you have a family. So we all work second jobs. That was part of the plugging into the matrix, as I would say. Everybody's just plugged in, and we're just sleepwalking through life going, okay, we're going to do a job where you got to know how to save somebody's life. You got to know how to be an underwater rescue diver. You got to know how to be a high-angle rescue technician. You got to know how to deal with hazardous materials. You got to know how to be a good swimmer. You got to know how to get somebody out of an entanglement in a car. You got to know how to put out a fire. You got to know how. You can't be afraid to be an ice diver. You can't be afraid to get in ice cold water. You can't be afraid of heights. You see where I'm going with this? Oh, by the way, and all that, yeah, we'll pay you $14 an hour. You good with that? Yeah, fine. Pay me. I'll go do something else on my days off. I'll work my ass off. And we did that. All those things I mentioned, I was a part of. And yes, that was my starting salary, and it didn't move much while I was there. I was a firefighter medic with all the other things mentioned. I acquired those over my career there in Indiana. Oh, yeah, let's add in silo extrication, grain bin emergencies, field fires. I could keep going. All of that, $14 an hour. It's awesome, right? And yes, I had a second job. I worked a second job working for an ambulance transport company locally in Lafayette, Indiana. And I got paid more per hour doing that job than I did at my fire job. Make that make sense. But I was working two jobs like everybody else. And then in the summer, I would put the ambulance job on hold and I would go work at Indiana Beach and worked EMS, security, and lifeguarding there. It was fun. So my whole career, I always worked a second job pretty much, except the first few months because I just thought it was kick-ass working 10 days a month and having the other 20 days off, But over time, that gets old, and you want to work a second job. You get tired of sitting around doing nothing, So sometimes the second job is just to keep us busy, honestly, because we do have a lot of downtime. But it's something that should be optional. It shouldn't be mandatory. To give you an idea of how low we were paid as firefighter paramedics with that city in Indiana, a lot of our firefighters that had families, they qualified for free and reduced lunch at school. Isn't that awesome? You got all those qualifications, everything that I mentioned earlier, that whole list I went through, and your family qualifies for free and reduced lunch because you are below the poverty line of what the city considers poverty. You can't make this stuff up. And yes, a lot of guys and gals worked overtime, me included. But again, you can work overtime, you can work every day, but it should be because you want to, not because you have to. And it's because you have to that is killing this profession. Everywhere you look these days, paramedics needed, paramedics needed, paramedics needed. And yes, RNs are needed as well, but the paramedic is a vital part of the emergency response system. The paramedic is the first person that you're going to see if you dial 911 and you are having an emergency. You're going to see an EMT and a paramedic, most likely, first, with the fire department. That's why fire trucks arrive first, and then the ambulance. But they're going away, and they're going off to nursing jobs because they're making $30+ an hour or even $40+ an hour. And what I don't understand is, if you go to be an RN, your skill set actually reduces, but yet you make more money. And you don't have the stress of making your own decisions. You have a doctor there to tell you everything you need. Or you'll say, hey, doc, I want to do this for this patient. What do you think? Yeah, go ahead and do that. Out there in the field, that's a Who song, Bob O'Reilly. Out there in the field. But out there in the field, you don't have that luxury. You have to make those decisions. If I go to somebody's house and they're having a serious medical problem, first off, I got to take care of that situation. I got to get control of that scene. I got to get everything squared away. I got to get I got to stop the problem or do my best to slow that problem down and maintain that patient's health while we're going to the hospital. Because if I don't do my job correctly, the hospital's not even going to get a chance to do theirs. And somehow that's worth less money than an RN. I struggle to wrap my head around it. I understand that, like I said, we did it to ourselves. We really didn't fight for better pay. We just accepted it and worked second jobs and all that and a ton of overtime. But I think it's time to fight now. I really do. The time of being nice is over. If people don't start waking up, and this includes the citizens of every city, county, little town, wherever you are around the United States, this impacts everybody, because eventually in the next few years, you're going to pick up the phone and say, 911, yeah, I need an ambulance. My loved one's having a medical problem, or somebody got slipped and fell and got hurt, or whatever the problem is. It's going to be 45 minutes, an hour or longer to get an ambulance to you, or they're just going to say, it's going to be 2 hours before I can get a medic unit your way. You might as well just drive to the hospital. Because I have heard of that happening in certain areas. Like the emergency dispatch will just straight up tell people, it's going to be an hour and a half before I got an EMS unit available. You might as well just drive to the hospital. But drive and be careful. I'm not kidding. But it's the constant low pay and the constant just getting your ass ran into the ground by the schedules and all that that's driving everybody away from this profession. It is a very, very, very impressive profession when you start peeling the layers back. And I really think the reason it's been underpaid for so long is because we have two versions of response. Well, technically three. They don't really recognize the first one anymore. But the first one was considered to be like a first responder. That's what they called it, your first responder's license. You show up, make sure the patient's breathing, make sure they got the three: airway, breathing, circulation. You might be able to take a blood pressure, ask some questions. That's about it. Well, then there's the EMT that moves up there from next. An EMT can put oxygen on a patient. They can check blood sugars. They can put not an advanced airway in, but like a king tube, combi tube type thing in if local protocols say so. They can give glucose in the mouth. They have a little bit of an expanded skill set. But then you have the paramedics, who are freaking field doctors. And I'm not exaggerating when I say that. Any paramedic that finds this is going to agree with me. I mean, you do it all. You get there, you first off, you size up the situation, you triage the patient, you make sure you try to you figure out what the problem is, then you try to stop the problem. Start the IV, get the fluid going, make sure they don't have any medication allergies that are important so you don't accidentally kill them or send them into anaphylaxis shock. You start medications. You can start medication drips. You can give pain medication. You can insert an advanced airway if needed. You can reset a bone that's broken, meaning like a femur fracture. You can sling and swath patients. You can stabilize them in any way, shape, or form necessary. You can do what they call an intraosseous IV, where it's a bone gun. You drill a needle into somebody's bone if you can't get an IV right away. I mean, the skill set goes on and on and on. Everything that you need to save a life, a paramedic can do. Oh, yeah, give medicine to stop somebody from throwing up even. Somebody's in a lot of pain. You can administer fentanyl, for crying out loud. And this is all being done without any supervision. There's nobody over your shoulder going, hey, I wouldn't do that if I were you. You have to make that own decision. You've got to make sure that you are on your game and that you take care of that patient and deliver them to the ER in, if not the same condition, better condition than when you found them. And again, this is all being done with two people most of the time. Yourself and an EMT. And I'll say it again, a good EMT makes a good medic. But for some reason, that giant skill set that I just mentioned is worth maybe $18, $19, $22 an hour to most places. Now, the hospitals are catching on. The hospitals are starting to really pay better for paramedics, like especially the interfacility transports. Locally here in Orlando, some of the hospitals have made a huge step forward, and some of the paramedics doing interfacility transports are making as much, if not more, than the RNs. As it should be. And again, I'm not putting RNs down. You all have a vital role. But The skill set that a medic has, the fact that you have to do all of that without a doctor, without anybody else telling you what to do. And sometimes these transports to the hospitals are, at least in some areas, 30, 45 minutes or more lights and siren. That's a long time to be with a patient that could be critical. So why in the world, why in the world are we paying our paramedics so low? But again, they're getting fed up with it. They're leaving. They're going to do other things. They're starting their own businesses. They're going to be RNs. They're going to we're going to hit a point here in the next 2 or 3 years when there's just not going to be a paramedic anymore. I mean, me at 17 years as a medic, I'm in like probably the top 1%. Most medics quit after 2 years. And a lot of it is the pay. The pay is just, it's soul crushing. You go to school for 2 years or more and you have this immense skill set. And then they're like, oh yeah, we'll pay you $19 an hour. City of Orlando Fire Department, $26 to $28 an hour. Some people might say, well, that's pretty good. No, no. Orange County Fire Rescue here locally, $19.75 an hour for paramedic. Everything I just mentioned. Imagine doing it for not even $20 an hour. You can go stack boxes at Target or Costco for what, $25, $30 an hour? You can go give out Band-Aids and Tylenol as a paramedic at Universal Orlando Resort here down the road from me at $25 an hour or $24 an hour. For crying out loud, man. And then you hear it all the time. Well, we just can't get any medics. I don't know where all the medics are because we're sick and tired of the nickel and diming. Even the hospitals. The hospitals here in Florida, I will give them credit. They are putting paramedics in the ER, which is great. But the problem is, like everywhere else, they're not utilizing us to our full potential. A paramedic in the ER could be, you couple a medic and a nurse together, or a medic and a physician assistant, or even a medic and a doctor. You want to talk about improving your throughput times? Holy moly. And now with the paramedic programs that are out there, they have the critical care medic programs. They have the community paramedic programs. You might as well be a paramedic practitioner, because in some of those you can do stitches. You can do pretty much everything except prescribe medications. The fact that we are underutilizing medics is because is what is causing this huge downturn. And I don't care what people say. You start losing all your medics, people are going to call 911 for a problem, and nobody's going to be there. Okay, you might put a ambulance together with a couple of EMTs, but they're going to show up, shake your hand, and go, all right, I'll drive you to the hospital. They ain't not going to be able to do anything. The paramedic is the most underutilized medical professional out there, straight up, without a doubt. And I don't know what it's going to take to wake people up. In fact, that's why I'm doing this. I know I just put this channel up, but maybe this video could go viral and start waking people up a bit. So people actually start, going to their local governments and saying, hey, what's the status of our fire departments? How is you got enough medics? Because people don't really know this is happening until they call 911, and then the operator says, yeah, it might be a half hour before we get somebody there. Just recently, not that long ago, here locally, they're a different name now, but I always call them Reedy Creek, which is Disney's fire department. They had a medical emergency at the Contemporary Resort. Took them almost 45 minutes to get a medic unit to them. To a patient having a medical problem, that's a lifetime. 5 minutes feels like a lifetime. 45 minutes? A lot can happen in that time. And it's just becoming a problem, though, where everybody needs to hire, but there's nobody to go around anymore. And so even despite the $5,000, $10,000, $15,000 sign-on bonuses, even despite now some of the places are offering $30+ an hour, everywhere they're gone. Paramedics have left the building. And even now, let's just say everybody that was a paramedic or decides, we're finally getting paid what we're worth, I'm going to get back into the profession. You're talking 2-3 years now, because you got to complete your schooling. You got to do all this stuff. It's just like becoming an RN. And, so you're still 3 years away, and then you got 3 more years of attrition and whatnot. It's a problem that, to be honest, is probably not ever going to get solved. I mean, maybe a couple decades from now, we'll finally catch up, but it's a problem that's gotten so bad that to try to fix it has become next to impossible. So I'm just like, the biggest thing that you can do now is just spread awareness. People, paramedics, you need to fight for what you're worth. Stop settling for just second best. Just like, well, it's a job, pays the bills. It's time to stop that. Paramedic is not just a job, it's a lifestyle. Whether you do it as a paramedic firefighter or you do it as a paramedic standalone, it's a lifestyle that you choose to live, and you live it every day, and you should have that passion within you. You got to have that inner passion. You're otherwise, you're just showing up to do work. And when you're doing that kind of work, you cannot slack off. You can't be just half-assing things, because that's when mistakes get made. And a lot of the newer medics I'm seeing with these fire departments, I don't know who's training these people, but dear God, man, I wouldn't trust them with a sick rat. I mean, they're not getting the good training. But then because they're not getting good training, they're not getting good mentorship. They're not getting anything. They're getting disgusted, and then they're quitting. They're sitting there going, I'm getting my ass beat for 20 plus calls in a shift, in a 24-hour shift or more, and I'm making $19 an hour. What the hell am I doing here? And then, of course, medics that are really good see that. They're like, I'm not going to put my rear end out there running my tail off for $19 an hour. Are you out of your mind? In order to get a good paramedic excited, you got to be getting into the mid 30s to 40s now, which is, where the critical care medic program is going. But it's just these cities, these counties, these hospitals, nobody utilizes the medics for their true potential. And I think where I'm trying to wrap this up into a bow here is, I think the problem is, because there is several layers to the first responder, if you will. There's first responder, EMT, paramedic. For whatever reason, I think the EMT acronym is so widely known that whoever's setting the salaries and that just looks up EMT job description. They're like, oh, okay. They take a couple vitals, maybe put some oxygen on it. We'll pay them, 18, 19 an hour. And I don't think they understand what medics do. I don't think a paramedic has actually gone and sat down in front of a group of city council members or a hospital boardroom that sets the so-called salaries or hourly wages and really laid it all out. I don't think that's happened. If it has, then I've not heard of it, because I'm willing to fight for this, because we can't lose all of our medics. We need medics badly. We need them for special events. We need them for hospitals. We need them for emergency response. We need them for disasters. We need them for everything. And the more and more we're losing, the more and more the public's going to be in great danger. And anybody from the general public that sees this, you all need to go to your council meetings. You need to go to your local hospitals, write letters, whatever. You need to demand better pay for your medics. Because I'm telling you, one of these days you may need that service, and there's not going to be anybody around. And the thing is when you pay crappy wages, I'm sorry to say this, but you tend to get crappy medics, especially nowadays. Good medics realize that a lot of the good medics are leaving fire rescue. I mean, myself, I left it, and going into the hospital systems, on the hospital trucks now, where they're making good money. And, if the hospitals can pay that, there's no reason these cities can't pay it. Same thing with the paramedics that are in the emergency rooms. They can pay them more money if they really, truly understood what it is they do. But for some reason, they don't want paramedics giving out more than 650 milligrams of Tylenol. Well, a paramedic in the field can give freaking fentanyl to a patient if they wanted to for pain control. So make that one make sense. I mean, again, you talk about the most underutilized healthcare professional, it's got to be the paramedic. And if people would stop pounding the round peg through the square hole, or vice versa, and they would start utilizing these medics correctly, even in the theme parks, theme park medic, if they would take the handcuffs off the theme park medics, oh my gosh, the amount of care that we could do, it's unreal. For the most part, you make a decent amount of money for what little you do as a theme park medic. But it's still, man, if you were to take those binds off and let a medic do their job, man, you could run a full-on medical service out of these theme parks, especially here in Orlando, where it's pretty much necessary. And then it would take the strain off of the local services that you rely on for transport because they're busy, and now you're adding a theme park in, which is another, small city worth of people. I'm very frustrated with just the continuous, neglect and the low pay of the medic, and I'm just doing this as a public service announcement. Help us out. We need the support of the public too, and we need the support of our own to fight for what's right and to fight for better wages. Everybody's like, they're all worried about the fast food workers and everybody else and, livable wage. Well, a lot of your paramedics can't, they're considered under the poverty level. Citrus County had to make some changes. Here by Tampa, they're paying $12 an hour for a paramedic. First off, I blame any medic that goes to do that in the first place. But, second of all, that's ridiculous. On the county, $12 an hour for a medic? Are you kidding me? I think hopefully that's changed by now, but I know they lost almost, 90% of the department because they finally just walked away. They're like, I can't live on this. A paramedic should be paid at minimum starting at $100,000 a year. No ifs, ands, or buts. I mean, they deserve it. It is a skill set that is deserving of that kind of a salary. Like I said, you do everything. You literally do it all. You, as a paramedic, have the ability to save somebody's life if needed without anybody else there telling you what to do. That's worth $100,000 any day of the week. So, anyway, that's just my talk today. It's a great talk. I enjoyed it. Let me know what you think. Any medics come across this? Let me know. I'd be curious to hear your stories as well. Where do you think we are as a pay? How's the paramedic situation in your area? Because I know here in Orlando, it's in dire straits. I mean, the fire departments, Volusia County EMS over by Daytona, like even the convention centers that hire paramedics part-time to do the events, they can't find anybody. I've had it admitted to me several times by several different agencies, like, Matt, we can't find any paramedics. They're nowhere to be found. Man, that's because just years and decades of underpaying and all that. They all either went to be nurses or they left the profession entirely, and that's not good. That is not good at all. And so I'm not leaving the profession. I'm standing up and fighting for what's right. And I'll do it to the day I walk away from this earth. And even somehow beyond that, I'll still fight for it because it needs to be done. It's deserved. It's very deserved. And don't ever think as a medic or even an EMT that you should be settling for less. EMTs should make way more. There's some areas that are paying EMTs $8 to $10, $11 an hour. That's a damn insult. An EMT should be right up there with the medic. Like, let's say a medic makes $40 an hour. I'm just using raw numbers. Let's say a medic makes $40 an hour. An EMT should be at least in the 30s. Their skill set is that valuable. So don't give me this crap that, we can afford is $12 or $14 an hour. Quick story before I wrap this up. Back when I lived in Indiana, I was actually going to go work with the Rural Metro Corporation. I don't know if they're even still around. They might be in some small pockets, but they used to be like huge across the United States, I guess. And they had the contract for the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. And every year there was an advertisement, come work at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway as a paramedic. Have some fun and, help protect everybody, keep an eye on all the Indianapolis 500 fans and, we'll pay you to be a medic and you'll be, when you're not running from call to call, you can enjoy the race or you can even be a part of the pit crews and all that, the medic crews that run out on the track, if you get enough training under your belt. I thought that looks like fun. I'll do that. That'd be something fun to do for the month of May. Well, I thought it kind of odd at first when they weren't talking about the money right away, that was kind of being widely ignored. People kept asking, how much is this per hour? Because they didn't say. And I started, there was like 2 or 3 segments where we went into this conference room and they were talking to us about the job. They were getting us all amped up, how exciting it would be and all that other stuff. And then policies and procedures. And then finally, on the very last day, they got to the pay. And that was when I realized why they were waiting till the very end. Of that whole group in there, I was the only paramedic. Everyone else was an EMT. And they came out with the pay ranges, and the EMTs were going to make between $7.50 and $9 an hour, and the paramedics were going to be making between $10 and $12 an hour, depending on experience. And that was when I calmly took my folder I had, I folded it up, and I stood up. I was the only one that stood up. And the guy that was leading the class said, "You going somewhere, sir?" I said, "Yes." I pointed at the screen. I said, "That is a damn insult." I said, "It's a damn insult to the EMTs. And it's an insult to the paramedics." I said, "I can literally go freaking throw a box up on a shelf in Walmart, Best Buy, anywhere for double that." I said, "I'm not about to waste my time at a busy Indianapolis Motor Speedway during the Indianapolis 500, no less, for 10 to 12 bucks an hour." I said, "Thank you for your time. I'm done here." And I walked out. And I was the only one to do it, but I absolutely was disgusted by that. But again, it takes, we got to start standing up for ourselves. Otherwise, nothing's ever going to change. Yes, we can leave the profession, and because everybody's leaving the profession, the pay might change, but then the public's going to suffer. So we got to fight. We got to fight a little bit. You got to push back. Don't be afraid to push back. So I hope you enjoyed this talk. I enjoyed giving it a little food for thought, So let me know in the comments, any of you, how you feel about it. All right, we'll see you on the next one. Have a fantastic week, everybody. I'll see you.